Hi, we're Scott and Gracie with Small Worlds Big Adventures, building community through gaming, and today we're going to talk about the 5 games we are demoting from our upstairs library down to our basement and why we're demoting them and not getting rid of them.
Descent is a game for 2 to 5 players. You can play it in 2 to 4 hours, and it's a fairly complex game. It's a dungeon crawling game. It uses tiles, figures, cards to keep track of everything in the game. One player plays as the dungeon keeper, and everybody else plays as heroes trying to get through the dungeon. It is an adversarial game rather than, say, a role-playing game. So either the dungeon keeper is going to win or the players are going to win.
What I like about it, and I've played both as the dungeon master or...
Yeah. It doesn't say on the back of the box, so I'm not sure what it is. I don't have the instructions. I said dungeon keeper.
Dungeon keeper.
They usually have something
which is not my favorite role, and as just like a general adventurer. But it has really good setup. Like the components are nice, and the story is cohesive. If you want to play through it all.
Yeah, quality components.
Yeah.
It's a game that's on the more expensive side.
Something I don't like is it takes forever. And it's not just the gameplay that takes a long time, because I'm okay with the long game. Setup takes a long time, and then also because it is campaign based, you can't just do one-offs. And I don't think the story is strong enough to make at least to make me want to go do the whole campaign.
Yeah, we don't like the time investment for this game. One of the reasons we're demoting the game is time. It takes a while to set up, it takes a while to break down, because there are a lot of components. The game is set as a campaign of 8 adventures. Each adventure, except for the first one, and I believe the last one, is set as 2 mini-adventures. Each mini-adventure takes about 45 minutes. If you just wanted to play a mini-adventure, it wouldn't really take that long, but because of the way it's set up, there's not a lot of impetus to actually play a mini-adventure on its own. You kind of want to play the campaign, but then you're investing a whole lot of time both in one day and then over a series of days to finish the entire campaign.
The reason why we're keeping it and demoting it and not just getting rid of it is we do enjoy it, and we really enjoy the components. It's just not a game right now in our life that we have a lot of time to play or the right group to play with.
Yeah. I actually would recommend this game, especially this edition of it. We have a number of expansions and add-ons for the game. I'd rather sit down and play Dungeons & Dragons. I'd rather sit down and play a different board game than the amount of time it'll take to invest in doing this. But if you don't have that or only have a couple of people to play with, it's a good alternative.
Doomtown, and really all of our collectible card games. But Doomtown specifically.
Doomtown is for 2 or more players. It can play in about 30 minutes, and it's pretty high complexity. Like a lot of collectible card games, the cards themselves alter the rules, and a high buy-in of knowing what the cards are doing is required in order to really get a lot out of the games.
I can't really speak to why I like this game. I've not played it. Part of the reason I haven't played it is because it is cowboy themed, and I am not about that genre.
It's a really good cowboy theme. Theming-wise, Doomtown does a really great job. We're demoting it mainly because in order to really get into collectible card games, you need a group of people, or at least 2, that are really into the collectible card games, and we don't.
Nope.
We basically have me.
Our son is also into card games like this, but it's not his highest priority.
Yeah.
So, similar to Descent, it's liked. It just isn't the right time for it to get a lot of play in our life.
Yep.
Gen 7.
Gen 7 is a game for 3 to 4 players. It plays in 60 to 90 minutes, and we would say it's moderate complexity. Gen 7 is a worker placement campaign game with a very narrative story, and the fun for the game falls into the story itself. The worker placement game is kind of bare bones and a little lackluster, but the narrative actually adds a lot of spice to playing the game.
And I would say, that's what I really enjoyed about it, was unveiling the story through our choices. Technically, it is a game you can play over and over again. You can get different endings and whatnot. But it was definitely really apparent that the decisions we made playing it affected where we'd be going in the game. And I liked that.
Yeah. I'm not sure how many different endings the game actually has. I would say it's worth at least a second run through.
Kind of what we didn't like, though, is once you got to the end of it, you didn't feel like you could play it again right away because the story was too fresh. Also, similar to like Descent, there is a big time commitment, and it's maybe not the best payoff for the time commitment.
Being a campaign game, I think we had 12 missions, 13 missions that we had to go through, and they're fairly short individually, but again, as a campaign game, that means you're playing over a series of days. It's one that we will probably break out and play at least one more time. I'm not sure after that.
Yeah. Good for a second go through once we've forgotten most of the story.
The enjoyment relies heavily on the narrative more than the actual gameplay, in my opinion. The gameplay was fine, but not great.
Yep. Dungeons.
Dungeon is a game for 1 to 8 players. It plays in 1 to 2 hours, and we would consider this moderate complexity.
I honestly don't remember playing it. That is how often we play it.
Dungeon is straight up a dungeon crawling game. It's got a game board with a bunch of rooms in it that you travel around on. You break into the room, fight a monster, and get a treasure. This is pretty much the original dungeon crawling board game. This is a later edition of it. The board itself is just a series of hallways and rooms. You break into a room, fight a monster, get treasure. So you get stronger to fight more challenging monsters until you get enough treasure, and then go back to the beginning space and you win.
It is getting demoted because we don't play it often. And for this style game, I think we have other games we prefer.
Yeah, Dungeon is a game that I always wish was maybe better, is about all I can really say. It doesn't quite live up to what I would hope that a dungeon crawling game would be.
Which, in its defense, it's an older game.
Yeah.
So, as with all things, these style games got better over time.
Yeah, this game was out when I first started playing Dungeons and Dragons, and is one of the first games of this type that I've ever played.
So yeah, that's why it's getting demoted to the basement.
Yep.
Cube.
The Cube is a game for 2 to 4 players. You can play it in 45 minutes, and we would consider this complex.
In full transparency, I picked this up thinking it was a cooperative game. And it is in the sense that we have a shared goal, but we're competing against each other. It is, as we lovingly refer to it, playing a spreadsheet. It is very much about gaining points and just small details. And
yeah, the only cooperative part of it is you're essentially building the board together by placing tiles, and the tiles are worth a certain number of points depending on where they are in the placement and what tiles are around them. So there's a lot to keep track of.
It's also really hard for your spatial awareness, because you have to be very aware of how you place things and what way they're going.
Well, because it's not just columns and rows, it's set to try and look like a 3D object when it's not, and so it's hard to tell which way things are going.
Why it's not just being gotten rid of is I actually did have fun with it, which is funny because I don't enjoy spreadsheet games at all. And I'd like to play it a few more times, but I think we'd both have to be in the right mood.
Yep.
Especially now knowing how intricate it is. So,
yeah.
Goodbye.